Okay, so let's start. So we were discussing in the last class what we had stopped was we were looking at like linear regression. Okay, and we saw that for two types of problems. So one is function learning problem where y belongs to R. Your target, that's what y is called as, sometimes called as target, belongs to R. This is like your function learning problem. The second that we saw is y belongs to 0, 1, which is like your classification problem. We saw linear regression for both of these types of problems. And then 0, 1 is one example. You can also have minus 1, 1, or basically any two types of outputs in the real line, but discrete. Okay, so this is a classification. This is the classification problem. Okay, and then what we said is, so basically what is the class of functions that we are considering? We are basically considering the features xi. So this belongs to certain dimensions. So let us say this belongs to some RD. Okay, so these are the features. Okay, so then we said, okay, so we will have the augmented representation, which is like sometimes denoted by a tilde. And here, what we do is we take the previous features and then add a 1 here. So this is like x1, x2 all the way till xd. Okay, so this is the ith training sample, something like this. Okay, so we saw this also. And in the linear regression type of a problem, what we are assuming is our class of function that we are using, the f of x, which is used to approximate y, is of the form w transpose x. Okay, so let us assume that w transpose x, x is augmented representation. Now, I made a important point last time is that x need not be RD. X can be a set of features that is constructed from fixed basis functions. So what I mean to say is we can have a new function z, okay, which is nothing but phi1 of x, okay, phi2 of x, all the way till some phi d prime of x. Okay, and then instead of working in the x space, you can have function f of x given by w transpose phi of x. Okay, so this is in the other space, and each of these functions need not be linear in x. Okay, what is important is so these functions phi1 to phi d prime are also sometimes called as basis functions. Okay, and what is important is that phi1 to phi d is it has to be fixed. Phi I is fixed. Okay, so then under these two conditions, even W transpose phi of x is linear. Okay, so going forward in this class, we will see at least one example where phi can be trained based on the data. Okay, so we will see two examples where that will happen. One is your feed-forward neural network. In that case, we will see. Okay, I wrote the spelling wrong. Okay. So I don't know which color I was using, but anyway. Which is the pen. Sorry, this is a new thing that I'm using today. So, okay. So feed-forward neural network. That is one example. Neural network. So that is one example where phi's will be trained based on the data. And the second example is radial basis functions, RBFs. Okay, so I'm hoping that one definitely we will discuss. I'm hoping that we can also discuss two. Let us see how it goes. Okay, so however, as long as phi's are fixed, the basis functions are fixed, your this thing W transpose phi of x. Okay, so that is going to be still linear. Okay, and we further saw that we are trying to minimize a loss function which is given by j of w is given by 1/2 summation xi transpose w minus yi. Okay, so square. So this is this is called as what is this called as? This is called as least square errors. Okay, least square loss. Okay, and then we saw one version already where there are two ways to solve it. One is you directly take the derivative, you set it to 0. So this is going to be a convex function. So convex function has a single, see, convex functions are shaped like this, right? So it will have a unique global minima. So you can directly analytically solve for it, and that gave rise to one formula which is called as like the pseudo inverse. Sometimes it is called as, or the least square inverse. So A transpose A inverse A transpose Y. So this one we saw, and we also saw we can use gradient descent approach to solve it. Okay, so what we did is we took grad J, and when you take the gradient, you will realize that this is equal to so this half and this 2 cancels. So this is going to be a vector. Okay, so because there are multiple, so gradient, right? So let me just say, so J is a function from W is in RD plus 1, right? RD plus 1 to R. Okay, so this is a function from many W's. Okay, these are all the things that you could change to R. So for every fixed values of W0 to WD, you will get one loss. Okay, so if you want to find out how to minimize it, you have to take the gradient. And the gradient, when you take, it will be a collection of partial derivatives. So this will be del J by del W naught to all the way till del J by del WD. Okay, so it's a vector notation. So if you take the proper computation, if you do this well, so you will realize that this is nothing but xi times W minus YL. Okay, so now, sure enough, this is the thing. You will have I equal to 1 to n corresponding to all the training samples. So there, here again, we saw that there are two versions that you can have. So one is batch. Okay, one is the batch and one is the stochastic gradient descent. So this is a very important class of algorithms, stochastic gradient descent. So we saw both this. So in the batch version, what happens is you take the entire gradient and then you make a step like this, xk plus 1. Okay, so xk plus 1 is xk plus some fixed eta. You would like to minimize, right? So eta, you cannot take plus, you have to take negative, right? Because you want to minimize the loss function, so you have to go in a direction opposite to the gradient. So gradient increases, so you have to go in the direction opposite to the gradient. Okay. So when you are going that way, so you are collecting the whole bunch of all the samples and taking the entire gradient and then making a step. And in the stochastic version, what you do is you just pick one sample, any sample that you like. What you typically do is you go all over one by one all the samples that you have and you make periodic occurrence. Okay, so sum k transpose, okay, xi transpose w minus by I k. Okay, so you understand what I'm doing. I'm just taking one of the things. Okay, so these are the things that we have already seen. All right. So I hope there is no confusion as far as this is concerned. So one thing I would like to say. So when you are making updates like this, right? So you have to be. So this is something which, if you see, I will ask you to sometimes go through this, but there is a set of famous videos by Andrew Ng. So he says, okay, I don't know how much of it is really true, but he says that when people are making updates, they are not careful as to what happens is, right, you're making a xk, right? See, people are not telling me anything. Okay. I think it's some kind of protest. Huh? So this is wk, right? Come on. Am I still in the call? What's going on? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Andy Ing says when people are making these updates, right? So WK essentially is a vector, right? So where am I? Yeah, okay. So WK is a vector, right? So when you are updating each of these positions, okay, you have to do it as a bunch. So you should have a completely different variable for this. So if you are doing this over a loop, right? So you update each of these positions one by one, but you have to be careful that you apply all the updates at one go. Okay, so what I'm saying is when you are updating here, you should not use that update for updating this position. Okay, so you have to make independent updates. Does that make sense? Do people follow? So this is one of the things which Andrew says people make errors and as a result they don't get solutions. So I just thought I should also inform this. Okay, so anyway, I will give you some assignments to test these things. Is this okay? Anyway, so I hope I have made this clear. All right, so this is what we stopped last class. So this is where we have seen so far. And then we also saw something else. We saw that this JW. Okay, so this JW, when you take based on whatever is your input samples, this is called as the empirical risk. Okay. So this is what is empirical risk. So this is the risk that you see within. This is we will see these things very clearly in a later class. But this is an in sample like in sample loss. Okay, so what is this is empirical risk, but this is just within this particular sample you are seeing this loss. Okay, but what is important is out of sample performance. Out of sample is more important. And so this JW, if you remember, we had taken something like this, right? Some xi transpose W minus yi squared. Okay, but what is more important is not this, but we are more interested to maximize the out of sample performance, which is expected value of okay n over 2 x transpose W minus y. Okay, and can someone tell me what is the expectation taken over? What are all the things that are random here?
Sir, W's.
W is what you are fixing, right? So see what you are doing is given. So this is called as E out of W. Okay, so basically given a W, I'm trying to measure its performance, isn't it? Anybody else would like to try? So somebody has sent a message. So let's see what they say. Okay, Devang, please you can go ahead. It's okay. So some of you have to go for Senate. Yeah, don't worry about the attendance. All right. Okay. So yeah, so I want some kind of participation. I understand that all of you are angry that I gave you a very difficult midterm, but please forget about it. We are friends again. So can you please tell? Yes, somebody unmuted.
Yes, sir, exercise, I think random.
Yeah, X and Y are random. Okay. So these are the things that are random, right? Because so what I'm trying to say, let us try to understand this. So when you take, let us look at the house market, right? So let us say X is your like area in square feet, okay, and let us say Y is your price. Okay, so depending upon if the area is more, you would expect that this would be what is the linear regression model that is learned. Okay, but what happens is when you take samples, right? Sometimes there could be a case where for a particular value of area, there could be 2 points which are at different prices. So there could be a price P1 and P2 which are at different prices. Can someone explain why this can happen? Anybody other than Tushar? Thank you, Tushar, for at least saying something. But anyone else would like to say why for a given area you may have two different prices?
So maybe the
There
price
can
is
be.
affected.
Sorry?
So the price might it might be affected by some other feature which is not
Yes,
present
yes,
in our data.
yes. So this, whatever you say, whatever feature is not present in our data is typically why we have probability, right? See, what is probability? Probability is the study of uncertainty, right? Study of uncertainty. Okay, so many of these things that you are saying, that some things that is affecting it, that is what is the uncertainty, and that is why we have a probabilistic model in the first place. So given an area, fixed area, there may be some set of observations that you are not seeing. Okay, these are typically called in literature as confounding variables. So these are called as confounding. Confounding means confusing. Okay, so basically y is random. Okay, and y is x random. Can someone say that? So why we understand y given a particular value of x is random. Okay, so this we can understand because for a given area you may have two different prices. That is just happening because we are not able to see all the information for that particular house. Okay, so this is why y is random. Why is x random?
So for a particular price, we can have more than one area.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So every property that you have will have different areas, and some people like small houses, some people have like big houses, some people can afford only small houses, some people have other factors. Some people live in a semi-urban area, they can build big houses. Some people live in Mumbai. So all these reasons are the reasons why x is itself random. Okay, so x is also random. Okay, so now what we are saying. See, the whole one thing that all of you must understand, it's an important point, which I cannot stress enough, but let me just make some space before I make that point. Okay, so your x and y, okay, so your x and then, so this is px and p of y given x, okay, so this is together forming p of xy, okay, so this is what it is. So basically this defines a statistical problem set. So this is basically your entire learning has to be coming from a fixed set of environment, okay, so this is the distribution of your entire learning problem. So for even though we don't mention it often enough, okay, what we are saying is we are fixing this entire set of distribution from which these points are coming. Okay, so our training samples, okay, so which is xi, yi, okay, so this all of this I equal to 1 to n should come from this distribution, okay, and then when you deploy it, your test samples, right, when you are actually using it in practice, again you should get from the same distribution, okay. So learning, so the point is you are learning and your deployment, right? So both of them have to come from same distribution, same fixed distribution. Otherwise, it will not work. Is this point clear? See, what I'm saying is, if you are using, let us say, a model to learn housing prices in, let us say, Goa, and then you use the same model and try to predict house prices in Mumbai, there will be some differences, right? The first of all, the area distribution, how the houses are priced, that itself will vary, and given a house price, y itself will vary. Okay, so it's very important that whatever you are using for training, the training samples that you have, whatever you are using for training, the same model that you learn should be used in a scenario which is again in the same problem domain, which is that they come from the same underlying distribution. Okay. All right, so I hope this point is clear. So these are the kind of things which are very important when you are doing a learning algorithm. And then just to recap a little bit more, we realize that when you use this kind of a loss, which is the least square loss, what you will get is essentially E of y given x. So is the best function of x which minimizes E out. E out means what is that? The actual risk of the classifier, which is W transpose x. Sorry, I'm sorry. This is not what I should write. So this is f of x minus y whole square. This we saw. I'm not going to prove it again, but the best f of x that you can get is E of y given x. Okay, so this is the best that you can do. And to test this in the midterm, one question was just a simple application of that, and I asked you to compute E of y given x, right? So yeah, so you have seen this. I hope you have understood it. So for classification, if you see E of y given x, okay, classification where the labels are 0, 1, E of y given x is equal to the posterior probability, Q1 of x. Okay, this also we discussed. All right, so these are all the things that we have discussed, and I was just trying to recap because we are going to use this and move further from here. Okay, so one of the so now we will move on to a topic which is called as logistic regression. First of all, so that is a new topic that we are going to start. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Yeah, so Yashi, you are right. Y is a random variable. That is correct. Okay. So are there any questions? So far, is everything clear? Can I quickly check with people? Can you please type in the chat? Okay, Nitish. So yeah, Nitish has asked a question. He doesn't understand about the in sample and out sample. Again, thank you for asking this because it's an important question. So let us spend some time discussing this. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So let us, since I didn't want to do this, but since Nitish asked, let's do this. Okay. It's a very important question. So the sooner you understand that, it is better. Okay. So let us do that. So let us say we have a model like this. Okay, so this is some x. Okay, and this is your y. Let us say this y is given by 2x plus some 1, 2x plus 1. Okay, so what you are having is y is equal to 2x plus 1, and then what I do is I will add some noise, some epsilon, where epsilon is a normal distribution with mean 0 and variance 1. Okay. So Nitish, do you understand how I'm actually doing this model?
Yes, sir. Up till now, it is okay.
Yeah. So now, so what that means is that we will have points which are not exactly falling on this line because we are having some noise. So let us say we will further assume that x is coming from, so there is some a and some b. Let us say x is uniform between a and b. Okay, so now we are going to get several points between A and B. Okay, once I pick a point, I will compute y by doing 2x plus 1, and then I will add some noise. Okay, sometimes this kind of noise is also, if you learn some electronics, it's also called as additive white Gaussian noise. Okay, it's very simple. It's just adding some variation here. Okay, so basically your points will be around somewhere like this, right? Okay, so these are all the points that you will get. So now, what is meant by E in of some W? Okay, so what is that? first question that we have to understand. And then what is meant by E out of W? Okay, so E out of, so let us just write this a little more precisely, because when we come to, I don't know till how far we will dwell in these topics, but when we come to that, we will have something like some classifier H of W, and then I want to compare what is meant by E in of this and what is meant by E of this. These two things we would like to understand. Okay, so now we will just to understand the difference, right? So what we will do, so let us see how many points we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 11 points. Okay, so 11 points we have. So we will just recollect some of the things that we have learned in curve fitting. Okay, so given 2 points, okay, there always exists a 1 degree polynomial that is passing through it, right? This everyone can understand, right? Given 2 points, you can always find a single line that passes through it, easy. Okay, so the same idea. So given 2 points, okay, so let me say 2 points, you can have a single degree polynomial x, some ax plus b, which passes through these 2 points. Okay, so likewise, given 3 points, okay, you can always find some second degree polynomial that passes through. Okay, so likewise, given 11 points, okay, I can always find some 10 degree polynomial, a1, a2, x to the power of 9 plus a3, x power 8, and so on. I can always find this. Okay, so so now let us just try to even see what that polynomial will be. Okay, so just for fun. So let us say these are your points. So call it as your x's and y's. Let us tabulate it. So you have x1, y1, x2, y2, and there are 11 points, x11, y11. Okay, so now what is the objective? I want to find a 10 degree polynomial so that I can fit all of this. So let me try to draw that. So what I mean is, can I find a polynomial which can go through all these points like this? Something like this, right? So I want to find that. So how do we do this? So have you seen something like this? How can we do this? Yes, anybody? Do you know how to do this? If I give you 11 points, can you show me the 10 degree polynomial that passes through it? Nidish, have you seen this?
So I think just by solving the linear equations.
Yes, so you can solve the linear equation. That is one way, that is a good way, but I will show you what is called as Lagrange interpolation formula. Very simple. Okay, Lagrange interpolation. What you do is you write your function f of x, whichever is the thing that you want. You write it in terms of all the points that you want to make it pass through in this manner. I equal to 1 to let's say okay, I shouldn't write this way because it will be a problem. So let me write all the expressions, all the 11 summations in one shot. Okay, so this is useful. Okay, so this is useful even in linear algebra. It will be useful for proving some very interesting theorems. Okay, but just for fun, because yeah, let me just tell. Okay, so what you do is, so I have to have, there will be 11 terms that I'm going to sum. 1, 2, okay. All the way, there will be 11 terms that I will be summing over. Okay, each term will be having a particular feature. Okay, so the first thing will have a term something like this. You will have y1, okay, times x minus x2, x minus x3, all the way till x minus x11. So what is missing? X minus x1 is missing. Okay, divided by, okay, x1 minus x2, x1 minus x3, okay, all the way till x1 minus x11. So this is the first term. Let's forget about all the other terms. Okay, so let me just ask somebody to just evaluate this f of x at a particular point. So let us say f of x is given by this, this whatever thing I have written. Okay, so first question to everybody. Okay, just use your chat window and type in what is the degree of this function, whatever you have here. What is the degree in terms of x? Can someone tell? Can all of you type in the chat window just to see if you are following? What is the degree that you see here? X minus x2 into x minus x3 into x minus x11. What is the degree? Yes. Nidish, what is the degree?
So it's 10, sir.
10. Okay. What about others?
So they have actually typed in the chat box. If you could scroll down, sir.
Oh, right. Thank you. Okay. So what is y1? Okay. So let us take an example. So x1 is so people are unusually quiet. So I thought maybe they're yeah. So x1, let us say it is 1, 3. Okay. So x1 here is I'm writing x1 as a value that is fixed. Okay. But what you have to think is like it is some 1 and some 3, like that. Okay. So then x2 could be, I don't know. I'm just putting some random numbers here. Okay. But you understand that this is 2, this is 5. Okay, like this, all these numbers are there. This is 7 and this is 12. I don't know. Okay, some such numbers. Jitendra, did you understand? Okay. So now, can you evaluate the value of f of x for x equal to x1? If only this one is there, if I put x equal to x1 for f of x, I will put only this term is there. F of x1, what it is? Can someone tell? What is f of x1? y1. Okay. All right. Everybody sees that? Tushar, can you tell? Do you understand how this is coming as y1? F of x1,
Yes, sir.
right?
All the other terms will get cancelled.
Yeah. So x1 by x2. Yeah. So when you put x equal to x1, it will
If
be
you
x1
put
by
x1.
yeah. Okay. So Tushar, what is the value of f of x2? Everybody can type in the chat, but Tushar, don't look at the chat. Can you tell what is the value of f of
Sir,
x2?
y2. Sir.
F of x2. No. This is the only, no. This is the only term left. I'm writing. This is the only thing that I'm writing. Okay. If this is the only term,
Okay.
if this is the only term, if I put x equal to x2, what will happen? You will have a term. What does this evaluate to?
It is 0.
Yes.
It will be
Yes.
0, sir.
Yes.
The
So
first.
for all of these x2, x3, x4, x5, all of this till x11, all of them will evaluate to 0. Okay. Do you understand? So that is why we will have
Yes.
term like this. Then, like you are thinking, we will have y2 times. Okay, we will have x minus x1, x minus x3. Okay, x minus x4, all the way till x minus x11 divided by. Okay, what should be here? Okay, everyone has answered correctly. What should be the first term here? Yes, everybody. What should be the term here? Jitendra?
Sir, x2 minus x1.
Yeah, correct. It's very nice, right? Such a nice thing. I mean, even though I don't strictly have to speak about it, that's why I thought everyone should know. It is so beautiful, right? So this is such an elegant and a simple solution that you can see. So can you see the rest of it? All these terms will have terms like this: y3 times this, okay, some y4 times this, all the way till y11 times this. Okay. Now there is one more way that Nidish said we can use Yeah, Nitish, do you want to explain what you are saying?
So it was a very tedious method, sir, to find all the constants.
Yeah, but nevertheless, there is a good thing about that method, and if you can tell me, and I will tell you what is the good thing about that method.
So the method was just to substitute all the points, the xi's and yi's, and then solve it using this. Yeah, the matrix.
Yes. So what you will do is you will have one, okay, x1 square, right, Nitish?
Yes, sir.
X1 to the power of 10, okay, 1, x2 squared, x2 to the power of 10, all the way till 1, x11 squared. So that is why, since you are able to answer questions like this, I feel like you know linear algebra well. Okay, which is really a good thing, which is very useful thing. Anyway, so what is the unknown? See, the equation that is unknown is basically you want to find an f of x, which is equal to a0 times a0 plus a1x, okay, plus a2x plus a2x squared plus a3x cube, okay, all the way till a to the power of 10 x to the power of 10. Okay, so this is your a0, a1, all the way till a10. Okay, this should be equal to y1, y2, all the way till y11. So I don't know if people are understanding. See, this is what it is doing is we are treating a0, a1, a10 as the unknown. Okay, and what we want is we want to find out what a0 to a10 to set so that this equation will evaluate to y1, y2 to y11. Is it clear? Can I ask? Yeah. So can I ask? Does everybody understand Nitish's method? Can you say yes or no? Okay, very good. So let me just ask a few people. Yeah, okay, good. All right. So I haven't seen Rohit has not said something. Rohit, do you understand this method?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, what is the advantage of this method? So as I mean, Nidhi says this is a tedious method, but is it really? Because let's try to understand. Okay, the dimension of this is 11 cross 11. Okay, and this is 11 cross 1. Okay, so first question to everybody, how many of you think this is invertible? So basically what invertible means is the determinant of this. So it's basically some a x equal to b. Okay, so how many of you think determinant of a is equal to 0? And how many of you think determinant is not equal to 0? So you can say 0 or not 0 in your chat just to understand. How many of you think determinant is 0? You can say 0. And if you think it is not 0, you can say not 0. Can I see in the chat? You understand the question, right? So there is this matrix A, which is consisting of these components, A1, X1, X2, all these things, times this is equal to Y. How many of you think determinant of A is 0? Okay, so everybody says not 0. Okay. So anybody, yeah, so that is okay, because you know x1, x2 all are different points. Okay, and they are not linearly dependent. Okay, so it's an easy thing. If you think for some time, you will get it. So essentially, what it is saying is there is a unique solution. Okay, so there exists a unique 10th degree polynomial to fit your xi, yi, I equal to 1 to 11. Okay, so this insight you only get from going to linear algebra. Okay, so Nitish, do you understand the benefit of this method?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now why all this story I told is because E of h, okay, E of h is basically trying to minimize this. Okay, this is basically the performance of f of xi minus yi square. Okay, so if I use my Lagrange interpolation formula and if I ensure that all the points are passing through the curve is exactly passing through all the points, what is E in of H? What is E in of H?
0.
Yeah, but is it realistic to assume that E out of H is 0? Because E out is still this. Okay, so next time when you take another set of points, okay, then you will get completely different things. You will get points somewhere here. Okay, so this is when you use it in your company, you will get points like this. Okay, so E out of H is not 0. Whereas what we want is we want to minimize E out of H, and that is what we would like to do. But we are not minimizing E out of H if we use a very high degree polynomial. Okay, so this is what is called as overfitting, but we will discuss this properly again sometime. But I just wanted to clarify this point. Okay, so Dinesh, did you understand what is the difference between in sample and out sample?
Yes, sir. It is more clear now, sir.
Okay, okay. Anything that I can clarify further? If you have, you can tell.
So I'll go through it once more and then I'll ask you, sir.
Okay, okay. So I got little sidetracked. So what was I telling? So basically, this is whole discussion. I got little sidetracked. I was trying to say something. Yeah. So these confounded things and yeah. Okay. Anyway, I will check my notes again. All right. So this is about how much time we have today. It's almost 3. So I will stop here. So in summary, what we did was we just recap what we did before midterm. Okay, we were looking at linear models, and we saw that the linear models can be solved either directly by solving, or we can do gradient-based methods. Okay. So now we also saw a little bit about in-sample performance and out-of-sample performance, and we were moving towards logistic regression. That was the next topic that I was going to introduce, but we will do this in the next class. Okay, so we will start with logistic regression. I will tell you why we discussed all these things and why was it important to talk about that. Okay, so we will start with logistic regression next class. We will see in logistic regression there are 2 kinds of losses. One is called as LN least mean square loss, and then the second one is called cross entropy loss. So we will discuss all those topics in the next class, and then once that is done, we will go to PCA. Okay, so that is the plan for next few classes. Okay, so that's about it. So let's see. I will see you all on Thursday. Okay, so if you have any questions related to midterm or what we discussed today, you can stay back and you can ask. Otherwise, let's stop here. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.